Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 2022 Council Agenda Briefing. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past and present. I would like to advise everyone that the audio of this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. I request everyone to turn off mobile phones. I remind you that audio recording of the meeting proceedings and photography within the chamber is prohibited unless prior approval has been granted. And councillors and city officers are reminded to disclose any declarations of financial interests and interests affecting impartiality, and are requested to activate their microphones when addressing the meeting. So, with that, welcome. Item 1 is the declaration of opening, and I declare the meeting open at 1 minute past 6 p.m. Items for council. Agenda items 2, 3, 6, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 9, 11, 13 and 14 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting to be held 13 December 2022. Item 4 is attendance. Item 4.1 is apologies. I've received an apology from Councillor Stephen Russell for this evening. Item 4.2 is approved leaves of absence, and Councillor Andre Brender-Abrandis has an approved leave of absence for the period 5 December 2022 to 31 December 2022, but he is here tonight. So hello, Councillor Brender-Abrandis. Item 5 is declarations of interest, and I have one that I'll declare. So that's me, Mayor Greg Milner. I'm declaring an impartiality interest in item 12.1 as I'm a co-patron of the Wasp Hockey Club. Does anyone have an interest that they wish to declare this evening? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll also make a declaration of an impartiality interest in respect of 12.1, insofar as my children have played hockey for the Wasps Hockey Club, and the proposed hockey facility site is where I walk my dog each day.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cridland. Councillors, any other interest to declare this evening? That's a no. Okay, moving on. Item 8 is presentations. Item 8.3 is deputations. And this evening we have one speaker who will have up to 10 minutes to address council. And I'd like to invite Ms. Cecilia Brooke of South Perth, who is speaking against the officer recommendation at item 10.4.2. Welcome, Ms. Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, councillors and all city staff. The special electors meeting of the 8th of November 2022 certainly attracted a large number of interested residents eager to put forward their point of view. However, unfortunately, many residents with an opposing view to that of the petitioners were astonished at the procedure that you adopted, Mr. Mayor, in handling the motion put forward by Mr. George Watts. I also point out that the original wording contained in Mr. Watts' request to hold a special electors meeting was modified before the special electors meeting commenced, which raises the question, was the original reasoning for the calling of the special electors meeting outdated, and were the 100 plus signatories of the special electors meeting request contacted and informed that the wording had been altered? So at the special electors meeting, rather than following normal procedure, where following the presentation of a motion, a debate precedes a vote, we had the situation where a vote was called first, thus preventing any councillor the opportunity to explain their reasons for why they had previously not supported the tabling of the petition in September before a vote was called from the attendees. This is not democracy, Mr. Mayor. At the September meeting of council, Councillor Ken Manolis asked twice, could he put up a motion, to which Mayor Milner said no, thereby giving the councillors no opportunity to present their reasons and then have a vote. This special electors meeting may not have been necessary if that process had been allowed to happen. Let me take you back to the special electors meeting of the 8th of November 2022, following a long session where statements and questions were allowed from the floor. It became apparent while a majority of councillors had adopted their position at that council meeting in September. A resident then asked, Why was the vote taken straight after the presentation of the petition and before the councillors had presented their reasons for voting the way they did at the September Ordinary Council meeting, as I may not have voted as I did? Hence, motion 4 from the floor was carried 35-2. I will now outline the most important outcomes of that special electors meeting. Motion 4, moved Dr. Paul de Torres of Manning, seconded Mrs. Cecilia Brooke of South Perth, that in all future electors meeting and electors general meetings, that when a motion is proposed, the voting electors have the opportunity to hear the arguments for and against the motion before voting. That motion was carried 35-2. And motion 3, moved Mr. Keely Hodgson of Manning, seconded Mr. Peter Scott of Como, that electors do have confidence in the 5 councillors, Councillor Blake de Suva, Andre Brenda Brandis, Jennifer Nevard, Ken Manolis and Mary Choi, and that was carried 40-12. Fortunately, Mr. Mayor, democracy won out in the end, but not before a very undemocratic beginning. Had the councillors been allowed at the beginning of the special electors meeting to explain their reasons and respond to questions before the vote was taken on Mr. Watt's motion, it is obvious that the numbers would have been very, very different for motion 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation, Ms Brooke. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for Ms Brooke this evening? That's a no. Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 10, which is the draft December reports. I'm about to hand you over to the Chief Executive Officer, but before I do, just a reminder for councillors that council agenda briefings are for the purposes of allowing elected members to ask brief, concise and relevant questions of the city administration, questions that are relevant to the items on the agenda. Council agenda briefings are not for the purposes of elected members asking questions of elected members, and they are not for the purposes of elected members making a statement or a deputation and then adding a question mark at the end. So with that gentle reminder, Mr Bradford, can you take us through the balance of the draft December reports?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.2.1 is the Boat Shed Cafe lease. This report provides information relating to the proposed expansion of the Boat Shed Cafe on the South Perth foreshore to accommodate alfresco dining, and requests Council to approve the CEO to enter a new lease with Miller Holdings Proprietary Limited.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, do we have any questions for the administration on this item this evening? That's a no. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3.1, RFQ 9 of 2022, provision of waste and recycling collection services. This report considers submissions received from the advertising of RFQ 9 of 2022 for the provision of waste and recycling collection services under the Wolga Preferred Supplier Panel, Resource Recovery, PSP 007007, and Waste Collection Services, PSP 007006, supplier lists. The report outlines the assessment process used during the evaluation of the e-quotes received and recommends approval of the submission that provides the best value for money and level of service to the city.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item for the administration this evening? I have one, but it does relate to the confidential attachment, so I might keep that back until we go behind closed doors. Anyone else? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.1, listing of payments November 2022. This report presents to Council a list of accounts paid under delegated authority between 1 and 30 November 2022 for information.
Any questions on this item, councillors? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm just wondering in relation to the legal expenses, if Council's able to receive a breakdown maybe per business unit as to, because I noticed it was quite large for November, it was around 90,000+ for the month. I'm just wondering if it's possible to just get a, obviously we don't know we don't need to know the details, but just the breakdown for each business unit maybe.
Well, I'm not sure business unit provides the right level of breakdown, but by broad area of category, I can suggest that the large expenses are probably code of conduct matters, the Pinnacle Apartments, and probably lease preparation and advice on the lease licence workshop that was conducted.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillor Choi, another question?
No, just thank you, Mr Bradford, for that. And just, yeah, if we could get that breakdown per category, that'd be great. And just wondering, were any of those costs on behalf of any elected member?
Should I send that to Mr Bradford or Mr Bradford?
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Was any of the legal costs on behalf of any elected member or for any elected member advice?
We have not provided any legal advice to an individual elected member. We only get advice for the city, and we provide that to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The next item is 10.4.2, Electors Special Meeting, 8th of November 2022. This report allows council to consider the outcomes of the Electors Special Meeting held on the 8th of November 2022 in accordance with Section 533 of the Local Government Act 1995.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item tonight? Councillor Choi.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a couple of questions, and they were raised on notice, and I have spoken to the CEO prior to the meeting, and I've just letting him know that I've cut those down somewhat. So less of a preamble. Just wondering, my first question is, does the city know whether a fresh or even a refreshed motion at an electors meeting meets the intent of the Local Government Act and regulations, please?
Mr Bradford or Mr Adams? Mr Bradford.
So the purpose for which a meeting is called is one thing. Motions that are put by electors at an electors meeting can be determined by electors at the meeting. So there's no need for them to publish the motion prior to, and they raise them as we had several motions raised on the night. So the process was entirely in accordance with the requirements of the Act and regulations. Is there anything else to add?
Ms Tucker?
Yes.
Oh, so that's okay. Any further questions on this item, councillors? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, CEO Bradford, for that response. Also, my second question is there a reason why councillors weren't advised that the lead motion had been changed prior to the meeting?
Mr Bradford?
So again, the purpose of the meeting is what was specified in the notice of the meeting. The motions, and you might be confused. There is mixing up the purpose of the meeting and motions that are moved at the meeting. They are different things. And so the purpose of the meeting is one thing. The motions that are actually put at the meeting are separate items. And so we don't need advance notice of motions that are put at the meeting, as we had several that were put subsequently. So there was no reason to know of the motion or to advise council of it.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any further questions for the administration? Councillor Choi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. And again, thank you, CEO Bradford. So my next question was, in terms of the electors voting at the meeting, and I note that there were some questions asked and responded to by the Mayor and the CEO from unknown participants, as noted on pages 59 and 61 of the attachments. I'm just wondering, did the city, or how did the city confirm that voters who were voting with all those motions were actually electors or ratepayers of the district, please?
Mr Bradford?
Thanks for the question. So the meeting process, which includes identification of electors and the broad direction of the meeting, followed by the city, is exactly the same process that was used in recent years in this city, and is a very similar process to used in many other local governments with respect to managing attendance and votes. The city takes the measures that are considered reasonable to take and within our authority to ensure that only electors vote and participate in the discussion at electors meeting. It's important to note that the meetings are open to the public. We have no legal authority to require someone to identify themselves or to demonstrate they are electors. So as a consequence of that, the reasonable steps, pragmatic steps that we follow are that we ask people to register when they enter the meeting. We actually have no authority to compel them to. Around 160 people completed this, as I understand it, and they, providing their name and address, they would qualify out of electors out of about 210 people that attended. This is not dissimilar to the ratio of people who registered at probably one of the largest electors meetings around the Westralia Centre, where about 450 people attended and around 300 actually registered. So further, the Mayor stated, I think I counted it 5 or 6 times in his introduction to the meeting, that only electors could vote on motions. And we also asked each speaker to state their name and address as one of the mechanisms to help identify electors. These are very similar measures that are put in place by many other local governments, the same measures that have been used in this city for several years successfully, and we believe that they are the reasonable steps that we can take to comply with the obligations under the Act, noting that we actually have no authority to compel people to identify themselves.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, do we have any further questions for the administration? Councillor Brenda Abrandis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from the question with regard to identification of electors. So in order to obtain better verification and certainty around electors actually voting, would the city consider putting forward amendments to the process that could actually help us get better certainty around who's actually voting and the accuracy with those numbers, given that there could be any number of non-electors who would still vote?
As I explained, the measures we've put in place are those that we consider we can do with the authority we have. We actually have it's a public meeting. We actually can't ask people or compel people to provide their identity. We ask them to register. That's as much as we can do.
Thank you very much. But my question was, would the city consider making that a more robust process or not at all with regard to
I think the CEO has already answered that question, Councillor Brenda Abrandis. But
We've considered how robust we can go, and we think that's as robust as we can go, and it's consistent with many other local governments.
any further questions for the administration on this item, councillors? Councillor Choi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My next question was just regarding the officer's report at page 16 of the council agenda. I'm just noting that the total votes for the lead petitioner's motion was 156, with the remaining number of attendees likely being observers and not electors or ratepayers of the district, because they didn't vote. I guess I'm just assuming that, so I guess the number of people who voted and being electors and ratepayers is what really counts for an electors meeting. I'm just wondering if that could be included in the council minutes as well, please, not just the number of attendees, but the number of, I think you said it was 160 that registered as electors.
Should I send that to Mr Bradford or Mr Adams? I'm not quite sure what the question is, I must confess.
Sorry, can you just confirm what you're asking?
Yes, thank you, through the chair, Mr. CEO Bradford. Just wondering, in terms of the minutes, whether the number of electors that registered, I think you said it was 160. I know that 156 voted in that first motion.
I think that's already there.
No, it's just the number of attendees was 210, it says in the...
The vote count was taken, and it was taken on the night. They were counted, and so what's reflected in the minutes is correct.
Any further questions for the administration this evening, councillors? Councillor Choi.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, Mr. I think maybe my question was misunderstood. I just meant there was 210 attendees attended. That's what's reflected in the agenda commentary at the moment. I'm just wondering whether it can be amended to also include the number of registered attendees. So I think the CEO said it was 160 that she registered as electors. That was all.
Yeah, we can include that.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any further questions for the administration on this item tonight? Councillor Choi.
Yes, and I promise this is my final question. I'm just wondering, in terms of precedents and the standard procedure that has been followed at electors' meetings, both general and special electors' meetings, why the format that was followed through with at this electors' meeting was done so in terms of no questions or statements being allowed with the first motion.
Mr Bradford.
So the presiding member has the discretion to determine the format of the meeting. having regard to the standing orders. We actually followed the same processes that we used in other meetings, and we actually documented the process that would be followed, including we knew there would be one motion, and so that's why that was separated out from other motions, and there was ample opportunity for questions and statements. And in fact, given the duration of the meeting, I think we exhausted public interest in the item by allowing just about everybody to ask a question and make a statement. And so the process is determined by the presiding member on advice from the city and in consultation with the lead petitioner.
Any further questions on this item, councillors? That's a no. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
The next item is item 10.4.3, Walga Best Practice Governance Review. This report is to provide feedback to Walga on the governance model options put forward in attachment B that form part of Walga's Best Practice Governance Review.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions for the administration on this item this evening? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.4, City of South Perth Annual Report 2021-22. This report recommends that Council accept the 2021-22 Annual Report and endorses the Electors' General Meeting to be held Tuesday the 7th of February 2023.
Any questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.1, 2021-22 Annual Financial Statements. External audit, interim and final reports. This report tables the interim and final audit reports referred to as management letters from the Office of the Auditor General relating to the 21-22 annual financial statements. The management letters include findings, risk ratings, recommendations and management comments. It is recommended that each issue be accepted, added to the City's audit register with a commentary on progress of resolution of issues to be reported at each Audit, Risk and Governance Committee meeting.
Any questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.2, 2021-22 City of South Perth Annual Financial Report. This report recommends that the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee recommends that Council adopt the 2021-22 Annual Financial Report, accepts the Independent Auditor's Report included in the Annual Financial Report, and the Office of the Auditor General exit brief.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.3, Internal Audit Report, Collier Park Village. This report tables the Internal Audit Report, Collier Park Village, in accordance with the City's Strategic Internal Audit Plan 21-22 to 25-26. Collier Park Village is a lifestyle village located on Crown land designated for seniors housing and supplementary services. The report contains two detailed findings with a number of notations and observations. The audit includes strengths, weaknesses, risk ratings, issues and recommendations and management comments.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.4, Audit Register Progress Report Q1. This report provides an update on the progress of actions included in the Audit Register. The Audit Register includes all open audit findings that have previously been accepted by the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee.
Any questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.5, Council Delegation DC 703, Minor Amendments to Delegations, Register and Policies. This report proposes a new delegation to the CEO to be able to make minor administrative amendments to the delegations, register and policies which do not change the intent of the documents.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5.6, Risk Management and Business Continuity Activity Report. This report outlines the activities undertaken by the City of South Perth risk management function for the months of September to November 2022 and provides an overview of activities planned for the first quarter of the 22-23 financial year.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions for the administration on this item tonight? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr.
Wait, that was the last one on item 10, wasn't it? Or have I jumped ahead one? Was that policy? All yours. My apologies.
Item 10.5.7, Policy 694, 694, Fraud and Corruption Prevention. This report considers the revocation of existing policy 694, Fraud and Corruption Prevention, be replaced with a new policy 694, Fraud and Corruption Prevention, so that it aligns with the city's fraud and corruption control plan.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item this evening? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just confirming that I did send an email to governance and all councillors with regards to some potential amendments I might be foreshadowing at the next council meeting. I'm just wanting to confirm that governance did receive that, and I'm just looking at my emails. I think something may have come through today, but I just wanted to confirm that, please. And if there was any commentary that the governance would like to raise at this
Mr. Adams?
meeting on that.
Yeah, so I provided an email back to everybody, so it's to Councillor Mary Choi and the councillors group around some of the issues that you raised, so it might be a good thing for everybody to read that before the council meeting. There are some potential amendments that we could make, but there's also some other things that have been raised that we probably wouldn't want to make amendments in this policy to accommodate. So it's probably best if everyone reads that.
Thank you, Mr Adams. Councillors, any further questions on this item this evening? No. Okay. That's the end of item 10 then. We move on to item 12, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. Item 12.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Stephen Russell entitled Wesley College and Wesley South Perth Wasp Hockey Club Feasibility Study for Proposed Hockey Facilities at Collier Reserve. Councillors, do we have any questions for the administration on this item this evening? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are councillors likely to see this report anytime soon?
Who should I direct that to? Mr Bradford.
Yeah, so we received the report, it's about 400 pages, on the 17th of November, so we're literally still working through it. Once we've read it and analysed it, we'll determine what, as it says in the report, we'll determine what approach that we will take in terms of engaging councillors. I would expect that will include a workshop which will be programmed early next year before we bring it to council.
Any further questions on this item? I think Councillor Crittenden was first there.
I understand that there's been, well, from what I've seen in the media, in the headlines, there's been some sort of development with a $130 million project of the state government in relation to providing some sort of premier hockey and sporting facility in this area. Will that be in some way able to be aligned or complementary with whatever is in the WASP's proposal, which of course none of us have seen, and the RAF, which is located in that same area? And that's the first question. The second question is, did that announcement of that $130 million project, was that so late that it couldn't be taken into account by WASPs?
Mr Bradford.
So I'll probably answer the first one, the second question first. That announcement was only made last week, and the bid, I think, was only announced a few weeks ago, and prior to that it was certainly wasn't public, and so the scale of that bid was something that we wouldn't have known about, and I expect WASPs didn't know about, so I don't expect it was included in their consideration. Having said that, clearly as we now consider the study that has been provided to us by WASP, we will take that into account. I expect we will need to talk to Curtin and the state in terms of what that means for hockey facilities generally. But I would note that that $135 million proposal by the state government is a significant investment in elite sport to provide facilities for hockey at Curtin University. I understand it includes 3 turfs, an indoor hockey facility, and some other ancillary facilities for hockey. It represents a significant investment by the state government. for elite sport, and many of the facilities that we would seek to provide at the RAF would actually be complementary to that in terms of things like indoor aquatics, health treatment rooms, and potentially indoor sport courts. And so I certainly don't see it as a negative in terms of the RAF, and potentially a positive in terms of creating a significant sporting precinct in our area.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillor Navard, I thought I saw your hand up there.
Oh, Councillor Creedland has asked the questions, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions on this item this evening? That's a no. Okay. So, at this point, this is when the meeting goes behind closed doors so that I can ask that one confidential question. For those of you in the gallery, thank you for your attendance and participation this evening. And for those who are listening via live streaming, we'll be going behind closed doors fairly shortly. So perhaps if governments can let me know when that's happened. And reconnect to the live stream. And perhaps governance can let me know where we're back online. Great, okay. All right, so we've just finished off item 15, which was matters for which the meeting is closed to the public. We're now at item 16 of the agenda, which is closure. So I declare the meeting closed at 6:34 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance and good night.